It was late summer, edging into fall, in 1998, when this happened. My family owned a stretch of recreational land tucked into the foothills near a wide river in the southeastern United States. We'd had it for years, and even now, it's still in the family. Back then, early fall meant maintenance clearing trails, setting tree stands, getting the place ready for hunting season. The air had just begun to cool, but the undergrowth was still dense and green from summer. That weekend, we loaded up the truck with tools, a chainsaw, and enough supplies to stay overnight if we needed to. My father was working a tractor, prepping food plots, while my cousin and I followed along on an old ATV, stopping wherever he pointed. After a few hours, the work caught up with us. We were sweaty, thirsty, and tired. Instead of cutting back through the trails, we took one of the gravel roads that threaded through the area. It wasn't paved, just dirt and stone connecting a handful of hunting camps and scattered cabins. It saved time. We'd done it plenty of times before. One of those roads branched off into a place locals called Grave Loop Road. It led into an active cemetery that sat deep in the woods. The road curved in, circled the burial grounds, and came back out the same way. Only one way out. Thick forest pressed in on both sides. You couldn't see more than 20 feet into the trees. A gated trail from that loop cut straight back to our cabin, just over a small ridge. It was a shortcut we used all the time. As we rounded the bend where the cemetery first came into view, we saw someone sitting right where the loop began. We were still 100 yards out, but we slowed down immediately. Cemeteries demand a certain respect, especially when someone's there alone. We assumed it was someone visiting a grave, maybe cleaning or decorating. As we got closer, details came into focus, and that's when things felt wrong. The man was sitting on a concrete block, turned on its side, the rough edge biting into the gravel beneath him. It looked heavy, something that would take real effort to move yet. He perched on it, effortlessly, his posture stiff and upright, hands resting loosely on his thighs. He appeared older, maybe in his late 40s or early 50s, but it was hard to tell. His skin had a dull, lifeless cast to it, a washed-out gray that didn't look healthy or sun-worn, just drained, like color had slowly leached away over time. He wore faded denim overalls, threadbare at the knees and darkened with age, with no shirt underneath. His chest and shoulders were bare, thin but wiry, as if he'd spent a lifetime doing hard labor. There were no shoes on his feet. His soles were pale and rough, resting flat against the gravel, unbothered by the sharp stones or the heat lingering in the ground. That alone struck me as strange. Anyone else would have shifted, flinched something. As we rolled closer, the hum of the ATV felt suddenly too loud, echoing in my ears. Gravel crunched beneath the tires, close enough now that there was no way he hadn't heard us. We passed within 10 feet of him. He didn't react. No glance in our direction. No nod. No tightening of the jaw or flicker of curiosity. Nothing that suggested awareness at all. His gaze stayed fixed, straight ahead, locked on some distant point beyond the trees, as if he were watching something far away that we couldn't see. His face was completely empty. Not sad, not angry, not peaceful even. Just blank, like a mask, left behind after the person wearing it had stepped away. His eyes were open, unblinking, dark and glassy, reflecting no light. I remember thinking how wrong it felt to be that close to another person and feel absolutely nothing coming from them. Neither of us spoke. We didn't even look at each other. Some unspoken instinct told us not to draw attention, not to acknowledge what we'd just seen. We kept moving until the cemetery disappeared behind the curve of the road. At the cabin, we jumped off the ATV and hurried inside. The sudden quiet pressed in as soon as the door shut behind us. We grabbed cold bottles of water from the fridge, hands shaking just enough that I noticed it. Outside, the ATV engine continued to idle, a steady mechanical rumble reminding us that only moments had passed. From the time we rode past the man to the moment we turned back around, no more than 2 minutes could have gone by. As I stepped back outside, my cousin was still sitting on the ATV, staring down the trail we'd just come from. He looked at me, his expression tight, uneasy. "Do you know who that guy was?" he asked. I shook my head slowly. "I've never seen him before, ever." We climbed back on and headed the same way. As we rounded the bend toward the loop entrance, my stomach dropped. The man was gone. Not just gone, but everything was gone. No man sitting on the block. No concrete block turned on its side. No scuff marks in the gravel where it had rested. It was as if nothing had ever been there at all. We slowed to a crawl, scanning every inch of the road. Our eyes traced the tree line, the headstones, the narrow gaps between trunks where someone might slip through. The woods stood still. No rustling, no snapping branches. No sound of hurried footsteps pushing through underbrush. That's when the realization settled in, cold and heavy. There was nowhere for him to go. The loop only had one entrance, and we knew it well. There were no hidden trails, no shortcuts, no forgotten footpaths slipping off into the woods. On both sides of the road, the underbrush grew thick and tangled brambles, young saplings, and waist-high weeds packed so tightly together that even deer struggled to move through it without making noise. Pushing through that mess would have taken time. A lot of time. And that was assuming someone was empty-handed. Whoever that man was had been sitting on a solid concrete block. Those things weighed close to 40 pounds, maybe more. There was no way someone could hoist it up and disappear silently into the trees without snapping branches, crushing brush, or leaving some kind of mark behind. We'd seen nothing, heard nothing. There also hadn't been enough time. From the moment we passed him to the moment we turned back around, only minutes had gone by. He couldn't have walked far enough down the road for us to miss him not without breaking into a run, and even then, we would have seen him. Still trying to make sense of it, we rode all the way out to the main gravel road, scanning ahead, half expecting to see him walking along the shoulder. There was nothing. That road itself offered no explanation. It ran straight for a short distance before detonating into fenced-off government land. Tall chain-link fences, topped with warning signs and locked gates. No outlets, no side roads. Nowhere to turn off. Cemetery Loop sat less than half a mile from that dead end. My father was working a food plot barely 50 yards from the main road, close enough that the sound of any vehicle or even someone walking would have carried. When we pulled up, I asked him right away if he'd seen anyone come through in the last few minutes. He shut down the tractor, wiped sweat from his brow, and shook his head. Not a soul. We told him what we'd seen. The man, the block. The way he'd vanished. He laughed, brushing it off, saying we'd probably spooked ourselves. But even as he joked, he admitted something that stuck with me. Out there, you noticed when someone came through. There were so few people in that stretch of land that any movement stood out. A truck, an ATV, a stranger on foot. You didn't just miss that kind of thing. After that day, we never brought it up again. Not to him, not to anyone else. But my cousin and I talked about it for years. Every time we returned to the property, the memory came back. We'd revisit it from every angle, trying to force logic into the gaps, trying to make it fit. And no matter how we approached it, we always ended up at the same question. Not who he was, not where he went, but why take the block at all? Nearly 8 years later, in the spring of 2006, a violent storm system tore through the area. My father was out of town. Power was out everywhere. I was sheltering at a relative's house when he called and asked if we could check on the cabin. Trees had come down all over the county. We arrived just after 9 p.m. It was pitch black, rain still falling, lightning flickering in the distance. As we unlocked the gate to the driveway, headlights appeared behind us. An SUV pulled in. That alone was strange. As I approached the driver's side window, a woman rolled it down immediately, like she'd been waiting to talk. She asked if we owned the property. When I said yes, she handed me a business card. She said she was a regional writer, researching stories tied to the land, and asked me to call her later under better circumstances. Then she drove off into the rain. A week later, she came to our house. During the interview, she asked if we'd ever seen anything unusual on the property. At first, we said no. Then the memory surfaced clear as day. When I told her about the man at the cemetery loop, her eyes lit up. She said we weren't the first. She'd spoken to more than a dozen people over the years, different backgrounds, who all described the same man. Same overalls, same stillness, same empty stare. Through old records and forgotten grave markers. She believed the figure was once a man named Caleb, enslaved in the 1800s, trusted, tasked with guarding burial grounds, tied to a long-gone plantation. His grave sat in an abandoned cemetery nearby. It was the only headstone with a name. She believed he never left. I've been back there many times since. I still use that shortcut, but I don't stop anymore. And I don't look toward the loop entrance when I pass. Because sometimes when the air is just right, I feel like someone is still sitting there, waiting.